Welcome to Shovelware Diggers. Our dig team is currently excavating the Softkey Shareware 2000 Hit Games 2 CD collection. You can find a link in the video description containing the entire directory structure of this archive. It's week 41, and this is what our diggers have for us today. For more information on how to join the dig team, simply head on over to the Patreon page linked in the video description. Now without further ado, let's begin. So before we get to Dick DeYoung's successful dig, he did have a failed dig. And it's actually been a while since we've had a failed dig, but it was DOSGames/adventure/S_Joe1. And this one failed in a rather frustrating way, especially since it had a really interesting point of interest. We'll go with that. Chris Young is the author, which is kind of interesting. Given the person who actually dug this one up. You got Dick DeYoung, who dug up this, and Chris Young is our author for this game. Well, how's that for coincidence? Well, that doesn't look right. I think the game's frozen. Oh. What is going on? Okay. Oh yeah, sure, now you throw the error message. Unsupported video mode, that was weird. I've tried everything I could think of. This game is solidly broken. I've tried CGA settings, I've tried EGA settings. The only thing I haven't tried is using a different version of DOSBox, but that would take a lot longer to get going, given my setup. So this is going to have to be a failed dig. If anyone has any idea how to get this working, or has a working version of it, let me know. Again, this game was apparently... Whoops. I didn't have the window in focus. This game is apparently called Slick Joe 1 Lost in Reno. So if any of you guys know anything about it, let me know. We can cover it later if we can get a working version of it. Now before we get to Dick DeYoung's successful dig, we need to go into post-commentary mode. Now this is something that's not going to happen very often at all, and is usually a result of the gameplay being recorded, doing something to the footage or to the audio or something that just completely messes up the rest of the recordings for the week, or just the recording for itself, or whichever. Basically, this is for when things get messed up and I have no means of solving it, basically. In terms of this week, this particular game happened to just wreck the audio for everything. Like, I mean, here's a clip of how the audio sounds in the original footage that I captured. Oh, what? I change color if I take a hit? What? Did you kind of notice that hum in the background? This particular game started up with a really loud ad-lib sound effect, which created a sustained note that lasted through all of the footage that I captured, even after shutting this game down. And what's weird about this is that I didn't notice it when I was recording the footage because it was so quiet. But when I went to actually do the vocal compression to make my voice sound normal, it amplified this waveform to the extreme. So I could either leave my voice as it was, which would sound really distant and you'd have to jack your volume up to hear it, or you'd have to listen to this sound effect. And I tried other solutions, but I just couldn't get rid of it because it sounds like it's a consistent waveform, but it actually isn't. So I just had to give up on that. So instead, post-commentary mode is where I talk about the game without actually playing it while I'm talking about it, because I've already played it. So, with all of that said, let's move on with Dick DeYoung's successful dig, DOSGames/arcade/Bernie10, which is really, really bad. So this Bernie 10 game, first of all, it didn't seem like it would be so much of anything. When I started it up, there was this massive ad-lib sound right here with this woman where you can see her nipples, even though she's got a bra of some sort covering it, or a brassiere, whatever you call that. And so I was kind of just shocked by that. And then it's like $12 US to guy in Canada. And it's a super new version. Okay, first of all, a guy in Canada asking for US dollars. Okay, yeah, I do that too, but not a very common thing to see then. But anyways, it was made by Jean-Guy Lavelle, or Lavelle, or something like that. It says 286 or better, ad-lib or sound blaster cards, EGA, VGA. It's actually only using EGA, I think. I could be mistaken. But in any case, here was the game, and when I started controlling it, oh my gosh, this controls so bad. I mean, you're looking at it, this is so bad, it's so hard to explain. Like, the main issue, first of all, is that there's no key buffering. So if you want to move in a particular direction, you just press it once and you start moving in that direction. But what's hard about that is that, let's say you go to jump and you're moving. Well, you've now canceled the movement, so you just jump straight up. So to jump at an angle, you have to hit the jump key and then hit the arrow key to move. And here I am noticing that I'm actually like changing colors when I get hurt. And then when I died, I just go back to the last checkpoint I hit, which is apparently what those arrows are. And then I was also noticing that when I was stepping on certain floor tiles, it was like changing them. So I'm trying to jump on a floor tile again, but the controls are so bad, it's so hard to get anywhere. And then I notice I fall through. So another thing that's going on with the controls is that it's actually canceling out the certain buttons that you hit in certain ways. So it's like you would hit the direction to move in a particular direction, and then you'd say want to stop moving in that direction. Well, how do you do that? There's no stop button. If you hit the left, if you're like moving right and you hit left, you start moving left. And if you hit jump, you jump straight up. But if you wanted to say move while you were airborne, it wouldn't work. And that's why I was having trouble getting over that. And then the enemies are moving through the mid-air, and then I was getting so frustrated with this. And I've barely been playing for just a few minutes. And you've got all those status bars at the bottom too. It's like really hard to tell what anything was doing, really. And then I got to this part, and it's like, I don't have a key. I can't jump that high. Like, how do I get out of here? I later found out that you actually could sort of have this like magical float ability, but I didn't have enough to get out anyways, so it's like you're stuck. Like, what do you do? And here was the best part. When I actually hit escape to see if there was like a menu or something, it brought up that help me picture and then just dropped me to DOS. So it's like you don't even get a second chance. It's like if you get stuck, you gotta quit and start all over again. Like, there's no save features, there's no password features. So combine that with the horrendous controls, and this was just not fun to play at all. I think playing Bubsy 3D and other terrible platformers would be more fun than this. There is no way in hell I would have spent $12 on this. Even back when it was brand new in 1993, when games like Doom were already out there. Almost out there. Or maybe it was. Like, I mean, I don't remember the file dates offhand right at the moment now. I mean, I could go back and check. November 93. So, yeah, Doom would have been out. Or almost out. So a game like this, it's just... no. Nobody would spend $12 on this. It controls badly. You can't tell what you're doing. Nothing makes sense. It's just... this was not a good game. This is just not a good game. I do not recommend anyone try to play this. Moving on with the post-commentary, we've got Scott Percival's dig, which is DOS Games /Arcade2 /MZ Pac-Man? Ms. Pac-Man? Something like that. So now this one, you're probably thinking, oh, it's probably a Ms. Pac-Man clone or something. And, well, actually you're right. It was like going really freaking fast at first, so I had to turn the cycles down. But yeah, this is basically a Ms. Pac-Man clone. Not a perfect one. Like, I mean, it looks good. Sort of. It's using the standard IBM font for this resolution. But it has this sort of jerkiness to it, which I'm sure you're picking up on just from watching this. So it also moves extremely fast, and I really turned the cycles down. And yeah, the controls were... It was so hard to control this thing too. Like, I mean, because of how fast everything was, you had to be extremely quick in order to get around the corners and stuff. Plus, it was actually missing keystrokes if you were, like, at the intersection. So you wouldn't turn unless you hit the button before the intersection. So it did not control well, although after playing Bernie, this game's miles ahead of Bernie in terms of control accuracy. But one of the big issues I was having, though, was the difficulty. The game is so hard because none of the ghosts have any sort of personalities in a sense. Like, I mean, they're obviously got different AI going, but they all look the same. So, I mean, one of the things with the original Pac-Man games is that every ghost had its own AI. So you could sort of tell what the different ghosts were going to do based on what color they were. But you don't get that here. In fact, it almost seemed like every single one of the ghosts just wanted to go after you. But I was determined, and I did eventually find a way to get to the second level. Well, third level, technically. Because I wanted to see if there were actually different maps to this game, and it turns out there is. So, like a proper Ms. Pac-Man clone, it has different levels to it. Or layouts, I should say. And the interesting thing, too, is that this layout seemed oddly familiar. And I haven't actually checked, but I think it's actually a mirroring, or like a vertical flip, of the actual second layout for Ms. Pac-Man. I might be mistaken, but it's very similar. But just, you know, upside down. But yeah, this is otherwise a very basic game that doesn't have too much to it. It plays just like, well, almost just like Ms. Pac-Man, save for the control issues. And the fact that it's going very fast, so you can't tell the difference between the ghosts. It's a subpar port, but you could do worse. And to finish things off, we have Yarmo Ranta with DOS Games /Adventure /Skyland. Now, I actually ended things off here with, well, a text adventure of all things, but there were so many files, I was having trouble just figuring out what to run at first. So I just ran, well, first of all, I typed the README to see if that would help. It was made by some company called Castle Software from Los Angeles, California. When I ultimately started this up, I mean, you can read the text, pause the video and read the text if you want to, but this seems to be a sort of time travel story where you're trying to save the future by save the present by trying to figure out what the people in the future did to overcome the problems of the present. But what's weird about this game is that, yeah, after playing this for like 10 minutes, I discovered that there was like an 800 possible points, and yet I got nothing. After 10 minutes of play, it's like I couldn't find any items, I was just wandering around. There were so many ways to go. There's like 8 directional movement as well in some of the sections. I mean, it actually took like 6 minutes just to find someone to talk to. And it was a person in a museum who didn't really have much to say either. Although I did notice of interest when I was talking to the person in the museum that the game sort of had a thing going on where you actually could talk about certain topics to the different people. So, yeah, as it's saying right here, please specify one you want to talk to her about. So I actually had to talk to her about the museum. And she says, oh yes, this museum's the best in town. We only show the finest items. So the game is actually wants you to indicate how you want to talk to people, which I thought was interesting. So this particular text adventure seems more geared towards conversation and exploration as opposed to inventory usage. At least that's what I was getting from this, because I couldn't find any items to get. So, like, I mean, I'm sure there are items to get, but I didn't find any. But then I was only playing for 10 minutes, and that was something else that came up, was I noticed that there was sort of a time limit to this game. Not like a real time limit, but an in-game time limit, as in-game time would pass as you performed different actions and went to different locations. And it was actually a pretty tight limit. I managed to go through 45 minutes of what I believe was an 8-hour limit. Sorry, a 10-hour limit. So yeah, it's kind of like, if you don't know what you're doing, given there's an 800 point total to the game, you generally are probably going to lose. So it's a game you'd have to play through multiple times to be able to win. So I don't know if that would make it a decent text adventure or not. Like, I mean, text adventures aren't really my forte, so it's hard to comment on that, but it does do things differently than the typical text adventure I've run into. So if you want something, if you like text adventures and you want something that's a little more focused on exploration and conversation and not item retrieval and stuff like that, and you don't mind having a tight time limit, then yeah, I'd say take a look at this one. And I think I forgot to mention the name of this game. It's Skyland Star. So that's in case you want to look it up.